Hello, everyone. I'm Barry Scholes. I'm president of the CPG Professional Networks, formerly Kraft Foods Alumni Network. This is a webinar of our professional development series. Are you falling into the development gap trap? So I wanted to just share a brief history of CPG and Kraft Foods Alumni Network. So Kraft Foods Alumni Network has been in existence since 2007. And at the beginning of this year, later part of last year, we began to evolve to CPG professional networks. And that evolution was about being more inclusive in the CPG industry, as well as recognizing that many of our alums, whether they are still working in CPG companies or consultants, are already operating in a variety of other CPG organizations. And so part of our evaluation was to find out if we can continue to deliver on the mission that we committed to in Kraft Foods Alumni Network. And that mission was to focus on four things: network, talent, consultants, and professional development. In the networking area, our focus really is to have an active network, and one in which people can gather, have shared groups, celebrate history within CPG, as well as continue in some of the alumni networks around Kraft Foods, Mondelez, Unilever, and all the others that will grow to, but continue to share in and have an active network of people. Talent, we've been working on and being focused on helping people transition from career to career, helping companies who are also searching for talent. So we have job board, and we have, we'll continue to build our resources around talent. Development, today, and the webinar that we're doing today is a part of this particular slice that we're focused on, which is webinar series, discussion groups, mentoring partnerships, and executive panels. So you'll see some more information around our executive panels. Consultants, so we have a cadre of consultants who are out there doing work in a variety of functional areas. They are content experts, and so we're looking to build a vibrant community to help with business-to-business connections, as well as helping consultants be better consultants. So these are all the four areas in which we focus. We continue to build the network so that we can deliver and build a healthy community. So I spoke about more development. So we have the webinar today. We have another webinar coming up on October the 3rd. We have a panel, executive panel discussion, October 11th in New Jersey, November the 18th in Chicago. November the 18th in New York, Rye, New York. October the 23rd in Chicago, and November the 8th in Miami. So we hope to see you participate in those events. So today our focus is on this: are you falling into the development gap trap? And so we had this whole notion when Esme and Bonnie, speakers today, and I got together and began to talk about this topic, and we realized that there is so much going on in our worlds day to day that we tend to lose sight of development. And so we thought we would take the time today to sort of share some ideas on how we can help you with some ideas and concepts around developing yourself first, and then developing things around building your teams, and share resources and opportunities that are not very expensive, but are things that you can do within your wheelhouse. So there are two parts to this webinar. Pardon me. So there are two parts to the webinar. One part where we're going to be sharing content, and that content is going to be from two perspectives. One around developing yourself, and the other one around developing your team. And then the second part will be an opportunity for Q&A session on the back end that will entertain questions from you, the audience, around your questions around team development or personal development. So the other thing that we've incorporated is polls. Polls where we use our cell phone, text and answers, and give you an opportunity to actively participate in the webinar. And so let's move on to the first poll. And so this poll, let's say how you join in is to dial or text in the top of your screen, go to your text where it says recipient, you want to put 22333. And then on the very bottom where you enter your message, you want to put in Perry Scholes 398. Press enter, and then you will get an email, text message that says you joined the survey or polling. And so let's see. So you should get a message that says you've entered the poll. Welcome. And then you can choose. Text in your response. Is it A or B? All right, so again, you're gonna, at the top of your screen where it says phone number 22333, at the bottom where it says a text message, it's Perry Scholes 398. So it looks like 100% of us believe that self-driving vehicles will be popular and on the road within the next 10 years. So it's a scary thought. I'm not sure I'm looking forward to that. System. So today we have two speakers. If you registered for the meeting, you saw the bios. And our first speaker is going to be Bonnie Mezger. And Bonnie is a alum of Kraft Foods and has done work in a number of other companies in and around organizational development and leadership coaching. And the first part that we're going to talk about is developing yourself, because in the analogy that we use, we sort of think about the airline analogy where in a case of an emergency, you should put the mask on yourself first before you help others. And so in that vein, we're going to start there. So Bonnie, you
hello.
Up.
Hey, Perry.
Hi.
Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you very much for taking time to join us today. As Perry said, I'm Bonnie Mezger, and I will be taking us through self-development, concepts, and tactics and tools. Just a quick self-introduction. During my 22 years at Kraft, I was fortunate enough to serve in many of the business units, actually, as well as one of the manufacturing facilities. I served in operations, quality assurance, and then about midway through my career, I shifted into organizational development in the HR group. And part of that time was in the Marketing Leadership Development Academy and Global Talent Management function. And I met many, many great leaders and teams during those years. Then after Kraft, starting in 2008, I spent 9 years in Savannah, Georgia for a company, Gulfstream Aerospace Corporation. They're the makers of those really nice business jets. I was an organizational development and leadership coach for many of the business units at their headquarters, as well as spanning many of the field sites, including Appleton, Wisconsin, and many on the East Coast, as well as international sites in England and China. I had wonderful experience in the leadership development field, and so now, since about a year ago, I'm currently serving as an independent organizational development consultant and coach, and I'm based near Madison, Wisconsin. Kind of came back home, as it were, and I'm delighted to be with you all today for this webinar. So let's get right into it now. And I'm trying to advance the screen. And let's see here. Perry, can you please take me to the next screen, because for some reason my mouse is not, my arrow keys aren't working. Okay, so the agenda, what is self-development? It's really the what, who, why, and how is what I'm going to take us through today. So Perry, if you want to try giving me control again, let's see if I can do that. All right, let's just start with a poll. So this is, now that you know how to use the polls, the first question that I'd like you to answer, and this is multiple choice, how active are you with self-development? And I'll let you just read those choices there, and you'll have to use the text feature to choose your answer. Go ahead.
Yes, and if you are trying to figure out how to use the poll, you want to type in 22333 as the phone number that you would be texting to, and then Perry Scholl's 398 as the text message, and hit enter. And so we'll give it a couple of more seconds to get more feedback.
Thanks, Perry.
Ready for results? I think you should see them here.
Okay, so it looks like 100% of the answers are the letter B. I have a plan that I sometimes look at and usually do some of the activities. So as good multiple choices, there's really no right answer in this. It was just to give you a sense of thinking more actively about how you are approaching your own self-development. And so it's great that you sometimes look at it and usually do activities, and that's a very good start. So maybe today's discussion then will give you some more ideas about how you would like to approach it. So Perry, why don't you try giving me access again, and let's see if that works. Okay. Well, unfortunately, the technology worked before, but it's not, I'm not able to advance the screen, unfortunately. Okay, let's go into the what is self-development. So I looked up a few really simple definitions, starting, of course, with Webster's, and they say self-development is efforts towards self-fulfillment, either through formal study programs or on one's own. YourDictionary.com says it's taking steps to better yourself, such as by learning new skills or overcoming bad habits. And then our beloved Wikipedia says it covers activities that improve awareness and identity, develop talents and potential, build human capital, and facilitate employability. That's a good thing. And then it enhances the quality of life and contributes to realization of dreams and aspirations. That's a big mouthful there. But notice the bolded words. The point of the whole, everybody's, the definers seem to agree that self-development can't happen without some kind of action on your own part. So it's a very active type of endeavor. And very importantly, and I'm sure as you realize, it takes place over the course of your entire lifetime. So who's ultimately responsible for self-development? This isn't a poll question, but it's for you to really look and think about. Is it myself, my manager, maybe my coach, or my mentor? And hopefully you've realized that ultimately, being the key word, it's myself, me. I am responsible for my own self-development. Now, my manager, coach, and mentor and sponsor and other folks around me certainly play a key role in supporting and, helping me see some of my blind spots perhaps, but ultimately I am responsible for it myself. And we'll talk a little bit more later about the role of other people. Whoops, sorry about that. So why is it important? I always like to set the stage with sort of the relevance of this. And looking at some of the leadership development experts over time, I'm going to kind of look at a wide time span, about a 22 or a 19-year span, about starting with Peter Drucker from the HBR, Harvard Business Review's Best of How to Manage Oneself article. He talks about, with opportunity comes responsibility, that we must each be our own CEO. And only when you operate from a combination of your strengths and self-knowledge can you really achieve true and lasting excellence. And then Marshall Goldsmith, the well-renowned leadership coach, has a philosophy saying that to help others develop, you must start with yourself, similar to Perry's airline airbag analogy. And that one of the best ways top executives can get their direct reports to improve is to actually work on improving themselves and be a role model. And then he goes on to say that, of course, it doesn't just apply to the top levels, it applies to all levels of management. That if you want people to grow and develop, you need to show the way. And then a little more recently, the Korn Ferry Institute, Korn Ferry being the firm that is a top leader in executive, in recruiting and talent, all kinds of talent development, succession planning, and then who had acquired the Lominger as well as the Personnel Decisions International. So a lot of the key thought leaders are part of Korn Ferry now. They say that when all things are equal, such as smarts and motivation and experience, when all of that is equal, self-awareness is a key trait that explains why some business leaders succeed and others derail. So they really focus on the need for self-awareness, that it serves as a reality check. And then another more recent one from Center for Creative Leadership, they talk about the fundamental 4 leadership competencies, one of which of the core 4 is self-awareness. So they expand on it a little bit more, saying self-awareness has four facets that are most critical for leaders, being leadership wisdom, identity, reputation, and leadership brand. And leadership brand is what you aspire to and the actions you take to support your mission. So there we get back to the idea of actions and you being very involved in it. So these ideas are very consistent over time from many of the key leaders, thought leaders in this field. So the good news is self-development is a skill set or competency, meaning a combination of skills, knowledge, and attitudes, and it can be learned. So going back to 2 of our expert groups in this field, what they have to say, Personnel Decisions International, PDI, says it's a fairly simple process. You set a goal, create a plan, and take action, kind of like a project plan. And then key is you concentrate on what counts, you incorporate feedback, and stay on track. They also say if you learn continuously, the benefit is you'll increase your professional value, engage your brain, and enrich your personal life. So that's not a bad thing to aspire to. And then to be competent in self-development, the Lominger Group says your competence, to be competent, you'll personally be committed to actively work on the continuous self-improvement. You understand that different situations and levels will actually call for different skills and approaches. So that kind of alludes to the Marshall Goldsmith book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. You have to realize that maybe success 10 years ago and what helped you then isn't necessarily what you need now. And so you really need to stay clear and keep doing those reality checks. And then they also emphasize deploying your strengths. That's also very, very reinforced out in the literature now about taking a strengths-based approach. But you can't forget that if you've got any limiting, like derailing types of bad habits from our other definition, you need to be aware of those and at least minimize or at minimum compensate for those, or if you can't actually completely overcome them. So you need to be aware, and that's what you can do. You set out on a learning path for yourself. So how does development itself actually happen? Some of you may be familiar and remember this wonderful model called the 70-20-10 model. We used it back at Craft, I know, for a number of years. It's been around at least 20 years, saying that 70% of development comes from on-the-job experience, 20% roughly comes from relationships, meaning the feedback you get, the coaching, exposure to other places and things, and then as well as just your relationships with other people. That's 20%. And then the last 10% is what comes from the actual formal training, such as classes, webinars, readings, self-help books, things like that. All of these aspects are important, so you don't want to overemphasize one or the other, but you can realize that it might shift and change depending on your situation. But really key is deliberately defining what on-the-job experiences, such as challenging assignments, you can get. And you can start that right away. You don't have to wait for a job change. And sometimes people use what's called an action learning plan to help them stay clear and relevant on these things. We can talk about that later if you'd like. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of the how-to for self-development. As a preliminary step, it's really important to start with your mindset. And this is just internal to yourself. You know, this is where you sit, get a nice cup of hot tea and take a deep breath and just think about, what is my intention? Am I really willing to commit to following through? How am I going to take responsibility? And when will I need to be willing to course correct? So basically, it's about being a good steward of your own life. Think about what's my intent for developing and what outcome do I want? And why am I motivated now to do this? So to really think about what's going on inside of you for this. And then, of course, you might have other aspects you'd like to add that are relevant for you, and that's great. So now that you start with your mindset of intention, there's basically 6 simple steps about self-development. Number 1, know yourself. Number 2, know your goals. 3 is an action plan. 4, empower yourself. 5, get support. And 6, monitor and get feedback. And it can be a cycle, or if you need to jump around from step to step, you can do that as well. I'm going to go through each of these really quick because I want to honor time here. So step 1, knowing yourself. So I'm going to do this by giving you just a few considerations and possible actions. The handout that's available has a lot more details about each of these, as well as a worksheet. So in knowing yourself, thinking about what do you do well, i.e., so what are some of your strengths? What do you wish you could do better? What do you enjoy or dislike? Just sit and think about that. And some actions you could take are inventorying your experiences as well as your future desires. Here's where a 360 or some sort of structured feedback assessment can come in very handy, as long as it's done well and professionally and used appropriately. And then you can also work with a neutral leadership coach. That's a very good use for a coach in helping you get to know yourself. Knowing your goals. What do you want currently? What do you want? Or what do you want over time? And then here's the skills and strengths. What can you start leveraging right now? And then what new experiences or skills do you need to gain? This is where you could talk with your manager or your mentor to just really get some clarity around that. So just thinking about your broader role, how you add value, how you can add even more value, and then describing what success would look like. So that's how you start to get clear on goals. Then, of course, it's getting down to it. Get down to business. Start an action plan. And again, you don't need to put this off. What are ways you can grow in place right now, this moment? Who can you learn from? And what's going to matter most to you? I always talk about that with my coaching clients. When they get feedback or when they're thinking about what they want to do, step back and think what might really matter the most. And because there's lots and lots of things you can do, but get it clear, hone it down into what gives you the most bang for the buck. So then purposely learn and practice, remembering that when you practice new skills, it's going to feel uncomfortable because it's new and different. And so you have to just keep that practice discipline going, just like you would strengthen a muscle. And then for the business, you could identify processes or business aspects you can improve and just weave in your development right into something that's very relevant for the business. Or you can just get involved by joining a task force or an organization. Those are just a few ideas. So then back to sort of your internal thinking to yourself, you need to empower yourself. You don't really need to get power from someone else. So think about how do you empower yourself and what might get in your way? What beliefs or excuses do you need to challenge for yourself? We all have those. We get up on the wrong side of the bed, or it's a gray, gloomy day, and you know what? Sometimes that's going to happen. Let it happen, and then the next day is a new day, or the next hour is a new hour, and just get yourself back on track. And then if you make mistakes, that's actually a good thing because you can learn from those. So find ways to deal with these things. Don't get stuck on it, and then just stay centered and refocus on your goals. Okay, getting support. I talked about this a little bit earlier, and that's, you're the ultimate CEO and driver of your development, but you will need support most likely. So how can others really best support you? And think about that. Like, what role can each of these constituent groups take? Your manager, if you have one, your coworkers, even your peers, and even your employees, they can give you tremendous feedback. And you might want to set some ground rules for how that might happen. But basically, they aren't going to know that you're working on things if you don't let them know. So let them know, like, for instance, if you want to be a better listener, say, hey, I'm working on trying to be a better listener. Would you catch me when you think I'm not listening, or when I inadvertently interrupt you? Kind of give me a quick reminder that, hey, you want to be working on that, don't you? So, because you'll be sometimes working on autopilot, and you won't even realize some of those rough edges still creep in a little bit. And then also be willing to reciprocate and offer to help them in return. It's setting up sort of the culture of a mutual learning environment. One moment, need to grab some water here. Okay, the final step 6, just like any good project, you monitor it and you get feedback. So if can make some milestones and measure your progress, that's fantastic. Always, the key theme I keep repeating is getting feedback. You don't want to overdo it, but feedback that matters. And then think about, again, to yourself, you might get critiqued. Hopefully it's not nasty criticism. There's a difference there between constructive critique or feedback versus, negatively intended. No one likes that. But you do want, I know some of my best learning experiences definitely have been coming from the heart, from coworkers or managers who said, hey, I got to just let you know that I saw you do X, and when that happened, it had a bad response from other people, and I think you should be aware of it. That it didn't feel good at the time, but I was very, very grateful to get that kind of feedback, and it gave me a chance then to do something about it. So you need to listen to it, reflect on it. If you need to revise your development plan, that's just fine. It's yours. It's a living document. Keep it relevant, and then be diligent. So, final poll, what is the value of self-development? I'll let you answer multiple choice. What would you say? How self-development is valuable. So go ahead and follow those directions about, the 22333, and then and then text your answer in, please. Perry, I'm assuming you're still there, and do you want to help?
Yes, I am here, taking notes and listening attentively to all of your words of wisdom. All right.
So, okay, so it looks like 33% say it helps me grow personally. It's definitely true, enriches my life. And then all of the above was the 67% of the respondents, in that it helps professionally, personally, as well as it can help me do a better job for my employer, even if I'm self-employed. I am my own boss. So, it's whatever is right for you. Hopefully a good, self-development helps you in all aspects of your life, professionally and personally. And, and then when people are strengthened and empowered from their own being and doing things that they love, ultimately, that leads to a better job for the employer. So I'm going to try to advance us to the next slide. If not, Perry, can you take me to the next slide, please? I tried, and it's a little bit sluggish here.
All right. Let me see if I can.
It's just my summary slide, and then I will turn it over to you. So
There you go.
can, why don't you can just take control back. But in summary, so for self-development, you already got it, I'm sure. If you want to get all you can out of your job and career and life, then it's really vital to do self-development. The 6-step approach can help just make it clear, make it actionable. Remember to take a balanced approach, with experiences being the very key, and then getting feedback, and then formal training does play a role in that as well. So your development begins and ends with you, and very, very delighted to talk about it. Remember, there's a handout, and happy developing, and thank you.
The next presenter, as you saw on the bio, is Esme Thompson. And Esme, I'm going to turn things over to you and see if I can get you control of the mouse here.
Okay, thank you. Perry, can you hear me? Perry, Bonnie, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, actually, and did I take control? Okay, I think so. All right, here we go. Well, thank you, Bonnie, for that introduction. Fantastic. It's a reminder for all of us that development is something that we should continue to do, no matter what stage of career life we find ourselves in. There's always something that we can learn, that we can do for ourselves, and actually for others. As we develop ourselves, we also develop others. So thank you for that. I guess I should share a little bit about myself, and then get into the topic of teams and why teams are near and dear, so close to my heart. So I spent about 11 years at Kraft, first on the domestic side, then the international side. Actually, the bulk of my career was on the international side of the business, what is now Mondelez. And after leaving Kraft, I worked for the Center for Creative Leadership for a short period of time, and then I went to work in the pharmaceutical industry. And beginning around 8-9 years ago, I went out on my own, and now I am mostly an executive coach. The bulk of my work is in coaching, although I still do quite a bit of team development work. And it's because we do spend so much of our time working in teams, or at least I have found in my career, I spent a lot of my time working in teams or with teams. So with that, I will, I guess, get started. Okay. So once again, thank you for joining this discussion today, and kudos to you for taking the time to invest in your development. As I mentioned before, Bonnie walked us through the importance of self-development and provided us with very tangible, actionable plan for our ongoing development. I will pivot to the work that we do in teams, and particularly our work as a team leader. Although a lot of this applies to us as team members, but I will be mostly addressing the issues that we face as team leaders. Specifically, let's see if I can make this work here. Ta-da! No, it's not advancing either for me, even though it says that I have control of Perry's screen, but for whatever reason, it's not really. Yeah, here we go. Okay. All right, so specifically, what I will talk about is what is team alignment, team effectiveness, what criteria do we need to keep in mind in order to align your team's work towards your business strategy. I will then highlight some of the areas that have the greatest impact on team member engagement. Everything I present plus some additional tools are available to you in a handout. Okay. So for the purposes of this webinar, I will be using the description that's on your screens right now for a team. So a team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, to common performance goals and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. And that's the key operative here. Hold themselves mutually accountable. This, in essence, is what differentiates a team from a working group. There's a clear sense of what we need to do and how we need to do it to deliver our common goals. Okay? So with this definition, let's go to our first poll. What % of your day do you spend doing team-related work? And by that I mean as a team leader, as a member, ad hoc member, in response to requests of teams. If you're an external, do you work with just a client or clients, individual clients? Do you work with client teams? What % of your day do you spend doing team-related work? Okay, so let's take a moment now to answer the questions. Let's see. So again, to participate in the poll, as Perry mentioned, hopefully you already have this number in, and 22333. Then the message is Perry Schultz 398. And once you get a response back, you put in your response. Let's see, any results coming in? Total results 0 so far. Perry, any thoughts on that?
As Bonnie, I'm trying to, my cell phone gives me this message that I have to keep
Oh, we haven't opened the poll yet. Yeah, I see that. I just tested it out. It says that it hasn't opened the poll yet. Try again. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Try it again.
Let's go.
Okay. Well, you know what? In the interest of time, let's move on. It says 1 result, 2 results. Let's see. Yeah, can we show the results and see? All right. So far, give it one more second. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so at least 50% of our time. Okay, 50% of our time. At minimum, maximum 90%, maybe more. Okay. So clearly, this validates the experience, as I mentioned, that I've had personally, and also the experience that Bonnie and Perry have had as we talked about how much time we spend living and working in teams. And teams is really where, the whole human condition shows up, right? The full catastrophe. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what makes for a healthy team and how to make sure that our team members stay engaged in the work that they do as a team. All right, let's lock it and move on. So let's discuss team health. And I'm going to use a very simple model that actually we started using at Craft. So some of my colleagues and I put this model together with the help of some external consultants based on all the research that was available to us at the time. And over the years, I have found, folks, that this very simple model still very relevant. I still use it today with my clients. There are many wonderful models out there, but the one that I will focus on today for our discussion is this very simple one. Basically, how well do your team goals, roles, processes align with your business strategy? How well do each of these help you deliver your business strategy? How well do your team members work with each other within the team and with others outside of the team, with all key stakeholders? How well do they work within the team and with those outside of the team? How well does the team as a whole understand its stakeholder needs, understand the external environment in which they are a part of? These are all the things that make for team health if they properly align with each other and work towards delivering your business strategy. Very simple criteria. So let's go through each of these one by one. Okay, here we go. My apologies there. It's pretty slow. Here we go. Okay. So starting off with goals, what I'll do for each of these criteria is that I'll talk a little bit about them. I've included some questions. They are in your handout as part of a diagnostic that you can use later on with your team or just on your own. I won't go through the questions, but they are available to you in the handout. So starting off with goals, need to be very clear, actionable. The team knows and is aligned around what is expected of them as a team and as individuals. Individual goals themselves are very clear, explicit. They support the purpose and strategy. I, as a team member, should know and should understand that, yes, my goals serve a higher purpose, right? They serve the purposes of the team. They serve the purpose of the organization. Performance metrics, absolutely key, need to be consistent with your overall organization's KPIs. They should measure not just how well we're doing against the business strategy, how well we're doing against the goals that we've set for ourselves. Your performance metrics should also measure how we're doing as a team, so an internal measure of our effectiveness as a team. Okay, so those are our goals. Roles and responsibilities. Let me start with individual roles and responsibilities. Each member should know what skills and competencies they need to be successful in their roles. If they don't have those required skills and competencies, hopefully you and your team member are working towards filling those gaps, either by helping the team member develop him or herself, by having them partner with other members of the team, or partner with colleagues outside of the team who may have the skills and experience necessary. So team members should be very clear as to their skills and competencies and how to bring those to bear in the team. Each team member should know what part they play in delivering the goals, okay? And they should know what they are exclusively accountable for and what responsibilities they share with other members of the team. So what am I accountable for? Okay, what do I need to take the lead on? What do others depend on me to deliver? And where do I share that responsibility? Okay. Bottom line, when it comes to roles and responsibilities, there should be no mystery as to who does what. All right. We skipped one, processes. Okay, processes, which are absolutely key, right? Because this is where teams are great, successful, or they fall apart. It all depends on how well they manage their processes. So we have two distinct types of processes. One is business process, so processes that we are responsible for as a function or as a project team that we need to deliver to the organization. Then there's the internal team process, which refers to how do we operate as a team. Examples of that includes what agreements we make around how we make decisions. Do we follow a democratic process, or the team leader ultimately decides? Let's be clear about that. How do we resolve conflict? How do we track progress towards our goals? And last but not least, meetings. How frequently should we meet? What is the purpose of our meetings? Who's going to be responsible for the agenda? Who's going to be responsible for follow-ups, et cetera, et cetera? What are our team dynamics going to be? Open, free flow of ideas? Is it just going to be, are we just going to meet to make a decision? Everybody should do read all the pre-work ahead of time. Let's be very, very clear as to what our team process is going to be. Let's experiment, see what's going to work for us. Then put some norms in place. Let's make it explicit and very clear to all team members. So again, processes absolutely critical for team success, that we really pay attention or understand or are aware of our responsibilities regarding our business processes and what it will take to have a robust internal team process. Each team member should know the role they play. And if this is not clear, my recommendation for you as a team leader is to engage in a process mapping exercise, for example. You map out the process and you clarify roles and responsibilities using a tool or a technique like RACI or Rapid. There are many others in craft, and way back when we used to use the Paris model, but RACI or Rapid are now the vernacular that is used in project management. RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. Rapid stands for, let's see if I remember now, recommend, agree, perform, input, decide. Oof, okay. So I highly recommend that you use a process for determining, okay, are we clear about what we need to deliver and who's responsible for what? All right. Next, in holding this pyramid together are relationships. So relationships in a healthy, high-performing team are characterized by open, ongoing, formal, informal communication, deep levels of trust, shared values, the strong commitment to the goals. Okay, so relationships, this is what the whole pyramid stands on, the strengths of our relationships. How strong are they? How open is our communication? Absolutely key. When you join a team, a very clear diagnostic of the health of the team. It's how does information flow? Is there an open and free flow of information? Is it the right kind of information that people need in order to get their work done, in order to progress the work, in order to stay in tune with what's going on in the rest of the organization? Relationships. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about engagement. And last but not least, there is the external environment in which we operate. Okay, so how well does the team understand the context within which the team operates? How well does it understand its stakeholder needs? How well does it understand the impact its decisions have on other teams and other parts of the organization, internally, externally, etc. So how attuned is the team to the external environment in which it operates? So all of these, putting all of these together, gives us a sense of how healthy our team is, especially if they are aligned towards delivering your business strategy. You may have, a lot of these things in place, but at the end of the day, is it helping you deliver against your strategy? That's always the key. Okay. Let me now move on to our next poll question as we shift into engagement. So what else, other than ensuring your team is nice and healthy, what else can you do to improve productivity, drive engagement, continuous learning, and results? So take a moment to think through each of these statements here, and then pick the one that in your experience is most likely to improve engagement. So they are recognition for good work, and the recognition could be public or private, providing incentives to individuals or to the team, providing interpersonal support, i.e. just-in-time feedback, some coaching, etc., interpersonal support, providing team members with support for making progress in the work that they do on a daily basis. And lastly, ensuring that their goals are clear and well understood. Individual goals, team goals are clear and understood. So let's move to the next slide here, which is the poll. Hopefully it is active. If you will take a moment to respond, picking out the one that you feel is most likely to improve engagement. Okay. Perry, could we make sure that the poll is, okay, you just did. Okay, so we're seeing provide interpersonal support is coming in loud and clear. Recognition for good work, no, providing support, support making progress. All right, looks like we're done. So all of these factors are important, and they're all within your control as a team leader. You can use each of these situationally. So whenever you need to, and whenever it's appropriate, you can use any of these factors to drive engagement in your organization. Okay? But I would submit that, let's think we're done. Okay. Thanks, Perry. I think I can now move. Okay. I would submit that support for making progress in the work is something that you can do daily, that you can leverage to develop your individual team members as well as the team as a whole, and that out of all of these on a daily basis, has a higher impact on how team members feel about the work. And yes, I did use the F word, feel. How do they feel about the work? What drives their motivation? So how they feel about the work will drive how motivated they are to do the work, and therefore how likely they are to deliver, especially at a higher standard level. Okay. So progress, once again, I'm taking my time with this one because it's a little bit, it's counterintuitive here, but let's play with it. So support in making progress in my work daily, right? If I'm a team member, I work for you. and I feel like I'm getting all the support that I need in order to kick butt as far as my goals are concerned, really to make some progress every day, okay, overcome obstacles as they come up every single day, that is going to have an impact on how I feel about the work that I do. And how I feel about the work will drive my motivation to do it better, to do it with my colleagues, with the team, and to deliver. And maybe even above and beyond what is expected. Okay, so progress, making progress. So what tangible steps can you take to improve how your teams relate to the work? Let's take a look. So I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about nourishers and catalysts. Ooh, and we're getting really low on time, so I'm going to clip through this really quickly. Nourishers, what are those? Those are events that support the individual team member, the human being. So for example, providing them with respect and recognition, an acknowledgement of their efforts, for example, giving their ideas serious consideration, dealing with them honestly, okay, providing them with constructive feedback. That's a form of respect, of providing them, showing them respect and recognizing the effort that they're making towards their work every day. Emotional support, for example, team leaders, you can basically acknowledge and validate what's going on for individuals on a daily basis. Yep, I hear you, man. I can understand that you're frustrated and with the setback. Now, how can we help you find a way around it? How can we help you move forward, right? So just a simple acknowledgement of what the individual is going through is a way of providing emotional support. When you detect inappropriate or toxic behavior, addressing it privately, directly, and very constructively demonstrates respect and emotional support for the individual. A lot of times toxic behavior is a call for help. So what else? Affiliation and camaraderie, how to help build bonds and trust and appreciation between team members, taking full advantage of, let's say, regular staff meetings to provide teams with an opportunity to come together, to work together. So looking for opportunities within the day-to-day work for people to get to know each other. Of course, you can always do additional activities like team building sessions, volunteering in the community. Those are all great, but my suggestion is start with the work itself as a driver for building trust, for building the camaraderie within the team. So those are some examples of nourishers. They tend to infuse the work that we do with meaning. So if I believe that my work matters, right? If I believe my work is important, my work matters, I will do my very best to deliver it. That's the purpose of a nourisher, as a lever that you can use as a team leader. Catalysts. So a couple of examples of catalysts. So catalysts are events that support the work. They facilitate the timely delivery of work and completion of the work. Some examples are, let's see, providing sufficient resources. Do your team members have access to necessary equipment, data, dare I say it, budget, materials, other people in the organization to help them get their work done? Do they have the resources they need to make progress towards their goals? Sufficient time, but not too much. So clear deadlines, occasional time pressures. Yes, those drive motivation. They drive creative problem solving. They kind of get the juices flowing of the team and of individuals. But too much time pressure that is due to inefficiencies or flawed decision making, that will have the opposite effect, right? Can lead to disengagement. But just the right balance of, some time pressures and meeting a deadline. Come on, team, let's go. That tends to get the juices flowing. But again, as a team leader, striking the right balance. So by deliberately supporting the individual and the work that they do, each team member and the team as a whole should experience a greater connection to the work. These should allow them to make some progress in the work, which should help them experience a greater connection to the work, a greater connection to the team. And this, in the end, ends up driving your productivity, right? So if I'm making progress against my goals, chances are that I'm also being pretty productive in the work, and the team is being productive as well. And it's productivity that affects engagement. Productivity is the number one reason that people feel engaged in the workplace. Okay, so we tend to think of the ping pong tables and foosball, and I go into client sites, and man, they're beautiful. The client sites are beautiful. Are the people engaged? It depends. You start talking to them, they start complaining about everything that doesn't work, but they have the ping pong tables and they have the free lunch and all that stuff. So if instead we invest on making sure that they have what they need in order to progress and to feel that their work has purpose and meaning, chances are their productivity levels go up, productivity goes up, engagement goes up, and that feeds productivity as well. Okay, we have covered a whole lot of ground in a very short period of time. So let me wrap up. Let's see, teamwork. Teams require clear goals, roles, processes, trusting relationships in order to be healthy and for high performance. As I just mentioned, productivity drives engagement, which drives productivity. These work in tandem. And lastly, leading a team is helping you develop your own leadership capability. And it's also helping you develop the next wave of leaders in the organization, or the next wave of functional experts, functional or technical leaders in the organization. And we need both. And teams are a perfect place to develop yourself, develop the next wave of leaders in the organization. I'm hoping that what you heard from Bonnie today and from me was either a reminder of some stuff that you already do, and if not, that you're now aware of some tools that are available to you for developing yourself and for developing your team. So with that, I will pass it over to Senor Perry.
Thank you, Esme, and appreciate the passion and really that you could remember all those terms from craft from way back off the top of your head. That's amazing. Speaks to your expertise in this area. So the first question is, what are your favorite methods of personal development for CEOs and small to mid-sized businesses? Based on their position, they tend to be loners in their business. And so I'll leave that to either you, Bonnie, or Esme to jump in if you guys want to talk about that. Again, the question's about personal development for CEOs and small to mid-sized businesses.
Okay. Bonnie, you want to take a crack at it, or should I?
Sure. Well, I'm actually going to cheat here a little bit, and I'm looking in the Successful Executives Handbook, published by BDI. They have career and self-direction as one of the chapters here, and so I'm just going to share what they have to say. Is reflecting on the beliefs and values that drive your mission as a leader, and articulating your personal mission statement, evaluating the alignment between your goals and your organizational goals, resolving conflicting goals, linking the goals with opportunities, and interestingly, reviewing your balance between work and home, knowing what energizes you both places, and also spending non-work time on fulfilling activities. So that would speak to the whole person and not just sitting isolated, alone, and lonely in a very high level of high responsibility. So Esme, what kind of thoughts or experiences might you have around that?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, reflecting on this, and I thought, well, how do I even begin to preface this? I had the displeasure of working for a CEO who needed a ton of development, and in a mid-sized business, actually. But what I found in working in that live experience, and then through other experiences, what I found is that, you know, it's very lonely at the top, as we all know, right? And so they're not really getting some good information about how they are coming across, and how their ideas or how their commands are landing on the organization. So for this particular leader, of course, I wanted to have him work with a very experienced, seasoned executive coach. But it took me some time to help him get there, help him get to the point where he would be open to working with a coach. Because, you know, on the surface, he was like, yeah, absolutely. You know, he knew that was the right thing to role model, but would he be personally open to the actual work? And it's tough work to work with a coach. So it took me, as well as some of the members of the leadership team, some time to help him get there. And that was, you know, by, you know, us first being courageous enough to share some of our observations regarding how things were landing, making the observations more about the work than the individual, and then slowly working into, like, okay, well, here's the impact that your that email, or that, you know, pick your social media, internal use of social media of choice, response had on that team. So again, it took us working up the courage to provide that CEO with input and feedback, or when things were going very well, being very honest in how those behaviors were landing on the rest of the organization. So yeah, for me, my favorite method of personal development is for a CEO is an external executive coach, but you need to make sure that they are ready to do the work, and you also have to go through, you know, the tough vetting process for the right type of coach who's going to have a good synergistic relationship with the CEO, as well as the board, perhaps, or if it's, you know, publicly traded company, with the board, or with members of the leadership team, whoever else is part of the engagement and of the process. Hope that's helpful.
Esme, that's a great example. It's Bonnie again. I'll jump in. Another really handy resource would be the book from Marshall Goldsmith entitled "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." Mm-hmm. And he mostly works with people in, you know, mid to upper levels, and basically found that most of the issues for them were interpersonal issues of one form or another, which either didn't matter that much in the early phases of their career, or that they were so talented they achieved high levels in spite of the issues, but then eventually it came back to bite them. And he summarizes it in some really clear ways that it's about informational sharing flaws, or emotion-related flaws. You know, just like not listening well is a really good example, you know, that maybe it was overlooked earlier in the career, but it definitely started to derail him later. So that's a really good reference for folks in that dilemma.
Great. Thanks, Bonnie and Esme. The one other thing I would add is, you know, leveraging sort of both sort of responses is a good 360 feedback instrument, and specifically one that has a set of competencies specific for that executive level, and one which also has an ability to benchmark. I think that lonely at the top thing, there is a small peer group, and to the extent that you can get that person benchmark data that shows them how they compare to that peer group, I think is a really good way to sort of pull back and not have them think that it's just their team, but to get some idea of how they stack up against other CEOs in relation to the same set of competencies and those kinds of things. So give them some real concrete data that will be useful, and that sort of takes a little bit of the brunt off the weight off the coach delivering the bad news. It's there in the 360, and you get it from typically different parts of the organization, not just the executive team, but other levels and maybe even people that are on the board, and those kinds of things can weigh in there. And then I want to move on to the last question so we can really wrap up. And Bonnie, I think you've already talked about a couple of books for that leadership. But the other question is about books for teams.
Yeah, this is Esme. I have a couple of thoughts. So the books that I referenced, that I used actually for my presentation, there's two of them. One is The Wisdom of Teams by John Katzenbach and Douglas K. Smith. The Wisdom of Teams. That is, that is the Bible when it comes to teams, and they keep updating it. I mean, it was first published in the 90s. They keep updating it. Really good information, excellent research, very actionable as well. The other piece, the piece around engagement and making progress, that comes from research by Teresa Amabile, and the book is called The Progress Principle. While this is not about teams specifically, it does get into quite a bit of the impact on teams and team leadership, etc. Now, if we ever decide to go deeper from a webinar perspective, I would take us in the direction of using the team performance model by Drexler Sibbett, and I'll type this in the chat. So Drexler Sibbett, their team performance model is hands down one of the best performance models out there. It's it just takes you through a much more sophisticated view of team development, of how teams unfold and develop, because it goes deeper than the Tuckman model, right? The Tuckman model, everybody knows it. It's very linear, forming, storming, norming, performing. We're done, yay! And life doesn't work that way, right? So the Drexler Sibbett model instead starts with some very deep personal questions. Why am I here? Why am I part of this team? And then the next step is, why are you here? And why are we why are we here? What are we doing together? And then it moves towards a cycle of performance, of commitment, and then performance. So Drexler Sibbett would be my recommendation. I have not come across any books by them, but you can certainly download quite a bit of information if you Google or if you do a search on Drexler Sibbett. Quite a bit of information comes up, and if anybody's really interested in delving deeper, give me a call. Happy to walk you through the model and in ways in which you can use it. I can share all the different ways I've used this model with teams.
Thank you very much. Bonnie, Esme far exceeded my expectations of what you guys would deliver. I really appreciate your commitment to Kraft Foods Alumni Network as well as CPG professional networks. It's been really great. So I want to just thank you very much for your time and attention and dedication and all the work you put in to deliver such a great webinar. We do have handouts. If you would just email me and I will send you the handouts, and we can make sure that you get all the things that were listed here. And if you have questions directly for Esme or Bonnie, their information is on I believe it's on the handouts, but also on our CPG Professional Networks website. You can find them both. Thank you very much, and for sticking around a little bit longer than anticipated. It's been a great time. Thank you all very, very much for today.
Thank you, Perry. It's a pleasure.
Thanks a lot,
Working with you
everyone.
and Bonnie. Bye-bye, everyone.